Patrick here again with the third video in my series on accompanying Gregorian chant. Today we're going to talk about accompanying mode 1 specifically. We're going to take a look at three different pieces that I'm accompanying. We'll talk about the chords that I choose, the movements that I choose, and maybe we'll start to pick out some patterns that are pretty frequent in mode 1. So we're going to start with the Kyrie from Mass 4, which is for Feast of the Second Class. I'm going to play through it once through the first Kyrie, once through a Christe, and then through the final Kyrie. And then we'll break it down a little bit. And I should note that I have chosen to set this Kyrie in a different key than I would probably normally play it in. I would normally play this in pitch, so C would be Do. But I would just like to demonstrate, again, the flexibility of reading straight from the square notes. So I've chosen to set this one in what's going to sound like C minor, where Do is on B flat. Okay, so through the first Kyrie, we only are using a couple of chords here, and Re minor is going to be the primary one. And in mode 1, in general, as a general rule of thumb, you can't go wrong with Re minor. So in our key structure here, that's C minor. That's going to be your root sound, which makes sense because in mode 1, Re is your tonic. That's your final. So it's essentially the root of the mode. So through our first Kyrie then, I'm on Re minor. Then I go to La minor, which is G minor in this structure. Then Te major, A flat major, down to Sol minor, F minor, and back to Re minor. Okay, so we see there a fairly common cadence at the end there where it's Sol, Re, or to our ear, 4 minor, 1 minor. Okay. So that's a definitive pattern that we're going to find in mode 1 is a 4 minor, a Sol minor to a Re minor chord. Okay, so now into the Christes. We're still on Re minor, C minor. We go to F minor, Sol minor, back to Re minor, but in a first inversion. But again, there's that pattern, Sol to Re, 4-1. Back to Sol now, F minor. Now Do major to Re minor. So that's B flat to C minor. And again, that's another common cadence. I talked about this in the introductory video, that in chant mode 1, Re, Do to Re is a great cadence. It's actually 7-1, flat 7 to 1. All right, let's go to the Kyries in the last section. I'm just going to go to the very final Kyrie and talk about some interesting things that can happen here. So the final Kyrie. So what I'm doing there is Re minor, C minor, Mi minor, D minor, and then Fa major, E flat major, then back to Re minor, C minor, D minor, E flat, G minor, which is La minor, La minor first inversion, Sol major first inversion, La minor. So that's how I have chosen to end this on the G minor. So that last section there is C minor, D minor, E flat, G minor. G minor over a B flat, F over an A, G minor. Now the reason that I say that that's so interesting is because in these final Kyries we've the ear almost hears when you accompany it like that we've transposed, because in mode 1 the final, the tonic, is Re, but this section ends on La. It comes to a rest on La. Now you could, if you chose to retain a more authentic sound for having the final on Re, you could choose to end that on the Re minor or the C minor instead of the La minor, G minor, like I did. And if you did that, it might sound something like this. And that's fine. To my ear, it doesn't really come to a conclusion. But you may want that. You may be going for the more mysterious sound, especially because it would then be leading into the Gloria. So I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying to my ear, I would rather end that on a G minor chord, which in this structure, or in chant, is actually the La minor chord. Okay, so my ending, I would choose... But as I said, there's room for a wholly difference of opinion there, if you will. Okay, so that's the Kyrie from Mass 4. Let's move on to, let's see what I've got here. I've got the Communion for the 23rd Sunday after Pentecost. Amen Dico Vobis. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. I'll play through it, then we'll break it down. Amen Dico Vobis, qui guidorantes petitis, credite quia accipietis, et fiet vobis. Now I've set this one back with Do on C, and this is most mode 1 things you'll find that it works well for Do to be C, so you're working in a D minor structure. So our first chord is leading into the Re minor, so we start actually on a Do major, on C. And I think I did that wrong the first time around. I want to point out here that you want to be careful not to change your chord on Amen. There's not an ictus there. The ictus is actually on the La. So you should change your chord on the La. So it should sound like this. Amen. One more time. Listen to that. This is what you want. Amen. Because we're stressing the musical rhythm here. Okay. In this case, we're talking about the musical accent, and that's the important thing here. Amen. Okay, so C, D minor, A minor, which is La minor, first inversion, back to a D minor. Okay. Now Fa major, F major, up to a first inversion, Sol minor, G minor, C major. Now that whole movement there was to lead us to the C major, which is the Do major chord. You see how that worked? So we had Fa, first inversion Fa, first inversion Sol, Do. As I mentioned in the introductory video, we're trying to keep from having big jumps. That's why we move like that. Okay? Moving on. Down to a first inversion Fa again, F over an A bass. And then we go to a Te major chord, a B flat major chord. Then back to the Fa first inversion, F over an A. Now to a Sol minor, G minor. Back to the first inversion, Fa, F over an A. Down to a root position, F, Fa. Sol minor, G minor. Now D minor, Re minor over an F bass, so that's a first inversion. We're going to walk it down to the root position. And then at the end, all I did was I was pedal toning, holding out that Re bass, the D bass, and just moving from 3 and 5 over it to a kind of a suspension there with 4 and 2, and then back to 3 and 5. So that was at 4 beats. Okay, so in this particular case, we again see a lot of Re minor. Re minor and Fa major are usually pretty safe for use in mode 1. And then we also see quite a bit of Sol minor, but you have to be careful. Sol minor works really well when you have Te in your structure, but when T shows up, that's when we're going to use the La minor more than the Sol minor, because if we're using the Sol minor, in this case that's G minor, if there's a T, we got a bit of a problem, right? So that's where you would use the La minor. And then you'd use that Sol minor when there's Te, okay? And then again, in this case, we see the use of first inversions quite frequently to move us around. Okay, so there you go. That's the communion for the 23rd Sunday after Pentecost. Let's move on to the third antiphon for First Vespers of Sunday or Saturday Vespers. And it is in mode 1. And we'll go through both the antiphon itself and then through the psalm tone. So your first time through, as usual, you would intone this for the priest, who will sing Magnus Dominos. Then you'll come in accompanying your choir, your schola, at Et laudabilis nimis. Et laudabilis nimis, et magnitudinis eius non est finis. Okay, so when you accompany the choir for the whole thing, as you would on the second time through after the Gloria Patri, at the beginning we start on Re minor again, D minor. Magnus Dominos, Do major, C major, Nos, Fa first inversion then, F over an A bass, et laudabilis nimis, back to Re minor, D minor, and then we go to a Do major again, C major, magnitudinis eius. Now we're on a La minor, A minor, non est finis. So that was ending on that cadence, that Do, Re cadence. So C, D minor. You see what I did there? When you have a quilisma like that, where the first note of the neum is held, knees, you can kind of help drive that rhythm and keep people moving, because there's a tendency for a large group especially. I used to accompany about an 80-voice seminary choir that would want to really hold those out for a long time, you know. Et laudabilis nimis. And they've effectively then held that first note of the quilisma as long, if not longer, than a dotted punctum or a two-note, a two-beat note, where in fact that first note should only be lengthened, not held for double its value, just lengthened a little bit. So if you actually play a little moving structure there, where you go from 1 and 3, 2, 4, 1, 3, 5 in that chord, it kind of helps propel that forward. So it should be et laudabilis nimis. You can hear that kind of moves that right in. So there's one little kind of trick that you can do with that. Et magnitudinis eius non est finis. And again, that 7-1 or that do re minor cadence there at the end. Okay, so let's go into the psalm tone. You would intone it for the cantor, who would sing, Exaltabot Deus meus rex. Then you come in on an F major or a Fa major chord. Et benedicam nomini tuo in saeculum et in saeculum saeculi. So that was a Do major first inversion, so C over an E, back to a Re, a D minor, right? So then you would accompany the next verse, starting on a Re minor, D minor. Per singulos dies benedicam tibi. So I pedal tone through that, but at the accent, benedicam tibi, it goes up to the te in the melody, decam tibi. So we're going to play essentially a G minor, which would be the Sol minor chord, over a D bass. So that's a use, as I explained in the introductory video, it's essentially the only acceptable use of a first inversion is when it's over a pedal tone structure. Okay, so per singulos dies benedicam tibi. We resolve back on the Re minor, D minor, and we go up to the F major, Fa major. Et laudabo nomen tuum in saeculum et in saeculum saeculi. Magnus Dominus et laudabilis nimis. Et magnitudinis eius non est finis. Etc. through all the verses, through the Gloria Patri, and then we repeat the antiphon. Magnus Dominus et laudabilis nimis et magnitudinis eius non est finis. And there's your Vespers antiphon and psalm. So I hope you've started to see some of those patterns that show up in mode 1. Lots of Re minor, Fa major, first inversion of Fa major. Where there's Te, we see a lot of Sol minor, first inversion of Sol minor, Do major, and Re. And where there's T, we see La minor,